Imagine spending 10 years locked in a cell, 10 years of silence, regret and transformation, and then walking out into the same city that once feared your name. The same streets, the same people, but you are no longer the same man. You have killed the monster inside you. You made promises, and all you want now is peace. That is exactly where we find Tae-sik on the day he walks out of prison. The Tae-sik we first see on screen is gentle, a quiet young man with an apologetic walk and soft eyes. He clutches a small, worn diary in his hands, a little book filled with personal goals he wants to accomplish now that he is free. Whenever he completes one, he crosses it off. It is a simple, almost childlike habit. And that tells us everything about who this man is trying to become. He heads straight for a small restaurant called Sunfløwer, run by a woman he calls his mother. She is not his biological mother, but she is the only family he has. When he arrives, she is not there, only her daughter, Hee-ju, who looks at Tae-sik with cold, suspicious eyes and sends him off to a nearby bathhouse to clean up. Nothing about her expression says welcome home. At the bathhouse, Tae-sik fumbles awkwardly with a locker key, confused and slow. A man sitting nearby loses his patience and starts threatening him, assuming he is dealing with someone harmless and dim. Then Tae-sik takes off his shirt, and the entire energy of the room changes, because underneath that quiet, gentle face is a body covered from neck to waist in terrifying tattoos, the map of a life spent in darkness. The man's attitude disappears instantly. Not a single word needs to be said. Tae-sik may have changed, but the city has not. The local gangs still live in fear of his brutal reputation, even years after he went to prison. And the men who once followed him, Chong and Yang, his former subordinates, now run their own criminal operations under the protection of a slick, corrupt politician named Cho Pan-soo. On the surface, Pan-soo shakes hands with ordinary citizens and makes speeches about progress. But behind closed doors, he controls the entire area with threats, money, and violence. The police never interfere. They seem to always have some kind of convenient excuse to look the other way. Tae-sik visits Chong first. The moment Chong sees him, something shifts in his face. It was not joy, but fear. Because Chong knew the old Tae-sik. He knew what this man was capable of when pushed. He treats Tae-sik with enormous, almost theatrical respect, clearly desperate to make sure nothing goes wrong. But Tae-sik has no agenda. He is simply visiting an old friend before moving on with his life. He then visits Yang, and the reaction is similar, but Yang's fear comes wrapped in suspicion. Yang watches Tae-sik leave and quietly orders his men to follow him. He cannot understand why a man who once ruled the entire city is now living like a nobody. It doesn't make sense to someone like Yang, because in his world, power is never freely given up. He assumes there must be a hidden plan. That evening, Tae-sik finally meets his mother. She weeps tears of joy the moment she sees him and welcomes him, showering him with selfless, unconditional love. That night, before sleeping, Tae-sik makes 3 promises to himself. He will never fight again. He will never drink alcohol again. He will never cry again. 3 rules. 3 walls around the monster he used to be. He gets a job at a local garage and works quietly, honestly, and without complaint. A police officer who knew him from his school days watches in genuine disbelief. He tells his partner that this same man, now calmly wiping grease off his hands at a garage, once took on 6 attackers alone while drunk and left every single one of them broken on the ground. He was called a mad dog back then. He becomes a completely different person when he drinks and sees blood, utterly uncontrollable. The officer cannot reconcile that image with the soft-spoken man changing tires in front of him. Tae-sik visits a doctor to have his tattoos removed, not because he is ashamed, but because people judge him, fear him, treat him as something dangerous before he even opens his mouth. The doctor is honest with him. Removing the tattoos will damage his skin permanently. The scars will never fully fade. Tae-sik listens quietly and says nothing. Some choices leave marks you carry forever. Meanwhile, Cho Pan-soo has set his sights on the Sunfløwer restaurant. He wants the land to build a shopping mall, and nearly every business owner in the area has already given in. But Tae-sik's mother refuses. Completely and firmly refuses. And Pan-soo, a man used to getting everything he wants, begins applying pressure. Chong arrives with his gang, sent by Pan-soo to cause chaos and frighten the mother into selling. They start destroying furniture, shouting, throwing their weight around. Then they notice Tae-sik standing calmly in the middle of the room. Chang's confidence drains from his face immediately. Tae-sik grabs him by the collar and told him to never come there again. Chong apologizes and takes every single one of his men out the door without another word. Hee-ju's obsessive, unwanted admirer reveals the truth in front of the restaurant. Tae-sik is the man who killed her brother 10 years ago. The shock, the rage, the collapse of everything she thought she knew. She confronts her mother that same night, demanding answers. And her mother finally tells the full story. Her son had been a drug addict and a criminal who attacked Tae-sik first. Tae-sik never intended to kill him, and when it happened, he fell to his knees in front of this mother and wept, begging for forgiveness with everything he had. The connection between the mother and Tae-sik was honest and deeply felt. She saw a lost soul who had never known family, and she chose to give him one. After learning the truth, Hee-ju finds Tae-sik and tells him to stay. She calls him her brother. She even admits that her real brother had been cruel, someone who beat his own mother for money. It is a moment of unexpected grace, and for just a little while, the three of them feel like a real family. Then Pan-soo orders Hee-ju's obsessive admirer to attack her directly. He throws a stone at her head and sends her to hospital. Tae-sik's mother, finally broken by the fear for her daughter's safety, agrees to sell the restaurant. Tae-sik goes to Pan-soo himself. He begs him quietly, with no threats, to stop hurting his family. Pan-soo agrees but names his price: Tae-sik's fighting hand. Destroy it and the family will be left alone. Tae-sik agrees without hesitation. It is devastating not because of the violence, but because of the complete calmness with which Tae-sik accepts the deal. His hand means nothing if his family is safe. The task is handed to Byun-chan, Pan-soo's right-hand man and Tae-sik's old friend. He cannot fully betray Tae-sik. Instead of destroying the hand completely, he damages only the nerves, enough to look convincing in front of others, while secretly telling Tae-sik it will eventually heal. It is a small act of loyalty in a world full of betrayal. But while Tae-sik is at the hospital visiting Hee-ju and promising to protect her, something monstrous happens back at the restaurant. Yang arrives with his men. He murders Tae-sik's mother, the only person in the world who ever truly loved him, forces her fingerprint onto the property documents, and hangs her body to make it look like suicide. Because they believe Tae-sik can no longer fight, they are no longer afraid. Tae-sik walks through the restaurant door and finds her. The silence in this scene is unbearable. Everything inside him breaks apart. He searches the room in a daze. And then, between her shoes, he finds it, one of Yang's earrings. He knows immediately what happened. He sits on the floor, and he starts crying. And then he starts drinking, because all three promises he made to himself are now broken in a single night by grief so total that no wall could ever hold it back. On the other side of the city, Pan-soo, Chong, and Yang are celebrating. The restaurant is theirs. Tae-sik is broken. The plan worked. They are laughing, drinking, completely unaware that somewhere in the night, something is walking toward them, and it is not the man they thought they had already defeated. They hear crying outside. The sound is unfamiliar. Then they realize it belongs to Tae-sik. He walks into view, bloodied, drunk, and completely transformed. The gentle, apologetic garage worker is gone. What stands before them now is exactly what everyone warned them about: the mad dog, the legend, the thing that six men together could not stop. He throws Yang's earring directly at his face. And then he tells every single person in that room that before the night ends, none of them will be walking out. The fight that follows is not elegant. It is not choreographed poetry. It is rage made physical. He first allows the man Byun-chan, who didn't destroy his hands, to leave the place. Tae-sik seals the exits by setting fire to the gate with petrol, trapping everyone inside. And then he tears through the room like a force of nature, drunk, wounded, grieving, and completely unstoppable. Dozens of gangsters fall. Chong is killed. Yang is next, and Tae-sik strangles him slowly, deliberately, the exact same way Yang killed his mother. Even soaked in blood and barely standing, Tae-sik does not stop until every person responsible for his mother's death has paid the full price. Their master, Pan-soo, is last, and the film does not look away. When it is over, Tae-sik sits down alone in the wreckage, wounded, exhausted, surrounded by silence. And in that silence, he remembers his mother. The warmth of her, the meals she cooked, the way she forgave him without conditions. The camera lets this moment breathe without music, without dialogue, just a man sitting with his grief. The film ends not with Tae-sik, but with Hee-ju. She has become the top student in mathematics, and she carries Tae-sik's little diary with her, the one filled with crossed-out goals and quiet dreams. The emotional connection between Tae-sik and the mother and daughter is what makes this film something more than a gangster story. It is, at its core, about how family is chosen, not born. Hee-ju has started writing her own goals inside that diary, crossing each one off as she goes. If you like this, please like and share for more.